I spent like way too long deciding if I should like use notes or not, or prove I can be a G and like wing it, and that's not who I am, so I have notes. I just want to start by saying thank you so much for having me. I'm not even mad that there's not coffee, because I'm a big fan of Creative Mornings and all the people that I've been able to meet at these events. So speaking here today is really an honor, especially because we're speaking on a topic that I have thought so much about, namely magic.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So showing you an Arrested Development clip is like 99% of the things you need to know about me. The other 1% is that my name is Liz and I'm a writer. I started my career working in television. I worked in writers' rooms out in LA and here in Boston. And more recently, I work at an ad agency, Arnold Worldwide, in downtown Crossing. And I write TV commercials for clients like Progressive Insurance and the National Association of Realtors. And when I think about what drew me to my chosen career, it was really magic. And I think that's the way it works for a lot of creative people, right? You see a movie or you read a book or you see a piece of artwork and it's so perfect that you feel like you're seeing real magic for the first time, and you want to spend the rest of your life trying to replicate that feeling. The only problem with this is that everything that we've been taught about the link between magic and producing good creative work is completely bullshit. We make magic sound way sexier than it actually is. We make magic seem like, it's something that happens like when you're out being spontaneous, when you're on like this eat, pray, love inspired adventure out in the Andes or some shit, like living your best creative life. But in my experience, magic is not sexy. It is not this loyal muse that sits next to you like strumming a lyre. It's not a fairy that comes and sprinkles pixie dust. If I were to describe magic, I would say that magic is a lazy drunk guy that only hangs out with you when he has absolutely nothing better to do. Actually, like side note, I don't have a name tag, but like that's my Patronus. Or it could be like the toothpaste stain I have on my shirt today. But so that's magic. And he may find you when you're like out traveling the Andes and being spontaneous, but he doesn't like to work that hard. So he's much more likely to find you when he knows exactly where you are every day. In my experience, magic is not a byproduct of spontaneity. Magic is a byproduct of routine and self-imposed limitation. AKA, you can find magic, but only if you're already doing the work. So, creative magic is a byproduct of routine and self-imposed limitation. Those are some really good words, and I'm happy with them. Let's start with routine, because it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. If you're a writer, you've probably heard that in order to be a better writer, in order to be more productive, you have to write every day. And I would imagine that this is the same for a lot of different creative fields. You have to do what you're doing every day. And that's a piece of advice that I try to follow. Not just for the kind of writing that I get paid to do, but for the kind of writing that I don't get paid to do, my personal projects. Because when you think about it, creativity is really a numbers game. The more you're producing, the more likely you are to find magic. It's never the other way around. It never starts with magic finding you. So I will get up early. I will write at the same time every morning. And I even do the same things directly before I write. I get up, I feed my cats, I make coffee, and, which I don't need coffee today, and then I write. And while I'm writing, I'll even listen to the same sounds or types of music. And over time, I swear to God, you can feel your brain respond to this. These are these triggers, and your brain knows that you're about to take this creative journey. You know, like neurotransmitters are firing, or however science works. The other thing about magic is that magic responds best when it's trapped, when it has nowhere better to go. And I know this is really counterintuitive to everything that we're taught about magic, right? But remember, magic is a jerk that only hangs out with you when he has nothing better to do. So you better make sure he has nothing better to do. And by that I mean, when I begin a creative project, I never start out, I never let myself like wander this vast creative landscape. I challenge myself with these small, seemingly impossible writing tasks. I limit my writing so extremely that an outsider would think, God, nothing good can come of this. So for example, if I'm writing a short story, I might say, you know, what if I wrote a 20-page short story, but it only took place over 90 seconds? Or what if I wrote a TV commercial, but all the characters can only say one word? Because you have to give it to the creative mind. That's what's beautiful about it, is that when you start imposing these limitations, when you tell it that there are rules that it cannot break, it will try its hardest to break them. And that's where magic thrives. That's where magic lives. That's the kind of space where you're going to produce the work that people sit back and say, wow, I really didn't think you could ever do something like that. So, I'm going to end my talk exactly how I started. Everything that we are taught to believe about magic and its connection to creativity is complete bullshit. And while it's sad to think that we've been lied to, the reality of how magic really comes into being is a lot more manageable than we ever thought, because magic is not something that happens to us. It is something that we can summon out of us, so long as we do the work and we do it diligently. And I think that that is really, really comforting. Thank you guys so much.
Are we feeling magical, everyone? How are you doing today? Good, good. So my name is Anna Sweet. And in my life coaching practice, what I do is I help people transform a part of their personality that is no longer working for them, so that they can become the person they need to become in order to create the life that they want. And what a lot of people don't know about me, actually what no one knows about me, is that I've actually legitimately studied magic for most of my life. So I'm talking about, yes, spells and incantations, no sacrifices. I'm talking about being in like hanging out in a man-made yurt in the middle of the woods with a stuffed bear and an indigenous shaman with like smoke coming out of my eyeballs and walking around crystals. That is also part of magic. And what I've learned about magic is that, because what magic really is really, really understanding the internal and external workings, the elements that compose a person or an object, right? And understanding it so much that you can actually make small changes to shift the actual structure of this person or object, which actually changes the existence and the trajectory of this. And this is where it gets really deep, right? And this is why people do magic, is so that they can create things that they don't already have in their lives, right? So it's more money, it's more success, it's more love, it's more magnetism. And the trick is, and this is a secret that a lot of people also don't know, which is magic is actually really accessible to each and every one of you. And you don't need lotions and potions, and you don't need like eye of newt and toe of frog and tongue of dog, whatever it is. We actually are born with all of the tools, the internal energetic tools, to create these magical changes in our lives. And would you like to know how to do that? Yes? Yes? Cool. So for the sake of this talk, I call it awakening your inner alchemist, right? And it's really done through alchemy. So alchemy is like, we know it as transforming lead into gold, right? But really what alchemy is, it's also an internal process. So it's anything that's transforming or the creation or the combination of things to make a new thing. And actually, alchemy, and this is internal alchemy, so alchemy can be an internal process as well, transforming yourself from, let's say, illness to physical health. transforming your consciousness from something that's maybe like a lower level consciousness to this higher level of enlightenment, right? So this is actually a cool thing. Inner alchemy, it's an ancient art, ancient Chinese art from the Taoists, and basically it's utilizing your own inner chi and breath work, and basically everything that you have here with the external elements, and you can kind of get superpowers, and the whole point of this was to lead to immortality, and there's some really interesting studies on this. So what I want to show you guys is actually this really cool 3-step process that I developed for this talk that I actually take a lot of my clients through to really awaken your inner alchemist, to really like catalyze and solidify these changes that help you to become this, magician. And so it's both internal and external transformation. So you are changing yourself, and because you change yourself, you show up differently. Everything that you think, do, say, act is different. Guess what? Everything around you changes too. So when you change the structure of lead, the mass, the volume, everything, the density, it turns into this other product, gold, right? And that's really what we want, is we want the gold in our lives. So the first step actually is to identify the lead that's holding you down. And so I'll give you a real example. One of my clients, real client, we've been working together for about 2 months. Let's call her Michelle, right? So she came to me and she had a lot of this internal heaviness, this internal lead. Single mother of 2 kids, had a lot of doors closed for her because she was clinically diagnosed with a lot of learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD, and really she had, one of the big pieces was she suffered from a lot of mental, emotional, sexual abuse growing up. And so if you can imagine, we have all these pieces of lead. Michelle, she's literally weighed down by all these pieces of heaviness, right? The life that she wants, what she wants is like over there, it's so far away from her, she can't even see it. So what do? We identify all those pieces that she's insecure about. And then we go to step number 2, which is you have to lighten the load. You have to change the internal ecosystem, right? And part of the magic of that is there's lots of ways you can do that, right? And one of the easiest ways that I can give you right now is actually releasing your judgment on the lead that's hanging out in your body. So if you can imagine, like those balloons, those beautiful, scary balloons right there, as like lead balloons that are just floating around in your body, and your judgment of yourself is the strings that you hold on to keep them inside you, right? So there's no transformation happening because you're literally weighed down by your judgment of, I didn't graduate college, so I can't really have an effective career. I never had loving relationships growing up, so I can't have a happy marriage. Our judgments of these pieces of darkness within us is what keeps us stuck. And in order to activate your inner alchemist, you have to release them. And then what happens is you create this clearing. You create this almost like a blank slate. You create this opportunity where you can go into step number 3, which is you can literally choose to embody whatever the fuck it is you want to embody. All of the traits that you want to bring into yourself, like passionate, creative, right? You can be a wild lover. You can be a magnificent king. You can be a magnetic queen. You can be a successful, charismatic leader. So you can embody those traits and walk into those traits once you let go of your judgments, of all of your lead and all of your darkness. And then you really walk into that person that you want to be. And I have this right now, so if you guys want a copy of it, just email me, and I can send that over to you this weekend. But pretty much that's it. And so I want you to really walk into your own inner alchemist and really own the fact that you are in charge of your own transformation if you choose to take it seriously and you already have all the tools. Thank you.
Use a timer, because otherwise I'm going to ramble like whoa. I don't want to subject anyone to that. Hi, my name is Zach. I'm a design strategist here at Continuum in Boston. And today I'm going to share with you a few pieces of mechanical magic that I got to see on my Fulbright grant in China. So just for some background context, every year for the past couple of years, about 30 million people have been moving from the villages into big cities in China. So for some scale, that's about 40 times the population of Boston moving every single year. So when a lot of these folks pick up their entire lives and move, they don't often come with formal education or formal work experience, but what some of them do bring are these bad boys. These are rural vehicles, so they're typically designed to make things like carrying wood, or you can move your crops with them. But if you get somewhat creative and entrepreneurial, you can use them to make a mobile juice bar. So just like a lot of people have to change themselves when they move into cities and start their lives over, a lot of people have to change the vehicles that they rely upon to have new functions and generate income for them when they move into these strange new places. So yeah, not many people need a cord of wood moved from one side of the city to the other, but who doesn't want fresh pressed pomegranate juice? That's right, everyone wants it. So think about your local grocery store. For this next piece of mechanical magic, these drivers had to figure out how to work around this design constraint, which is, in the US we tend to like, fish on ice. That's where we're comfortable buying it. But in China, a fish's freshness is actually judged by how lively it is in the moment that you pick it up. And so, how do you get around that when your tool is a three-wheel vehicle? Well, you take the back, you fill it with water, you put a tarp in, and then you get an air pump and you oxygenate the water so that the fish can breathe as you drive around. Or, you can even do one better. On the opposite side of the country, this vendor thought she could take these separate plastic tubs and put a different tube into each one, so she has 3 kinds of fish that she sells every single day to different customers. So again, this shows us there's more than one way to skin a fish or skin a cat or whatever animal you want to choose. So this vendor in Chengdu sells shawarma out of the back of his 3-wheel vehicle. He sells them for about the equivalent of $1. He makes between $30 and $45 a day. But what's interesting is where he's selling. He's not selling in a near a subway station or in a public park where a lot of other vendors work. He actually is selling in the middle of all of these electronics shops. So I asked why he decided to do that. He said, well, land is completely unaffordable here. Everyone sells electronics. However, you cannot eat electronics. I don't think he's tried. And so what he decided is, I'll go where there are no restaurants and I'll make a restaurant. Only mine will be on wheels. So that's the power of these vehicles. That's another thing I learned, is that these things can actually get around the failings of formal urban planning and make a neighborhood much more hospitable and welcoming by offering cheap food. So what? What does this all mean? All right, think for a second about Japan, land of super fast bullet trains, everything shiny, clean, modern, and new. But guess what? After World War II, there actually weren't that many cars even. So if you wanted to get around quickly and move stuff, you use one of these bad boys. This is the Daihatsu Midget. Over 300,000 of these things were sold. But now you'd be hard-pressed to find one because everyone has given up these vehicles in exchange for cars and automobiles. And that same thing is happening in China right now as well. So, as this is happening and people are trading in their vehicles, this crazy 3-wheeled culture is actually disappearing. But the good news, China is exporting tens and thousands of these things to countries all around. And so they're inspiring the next generation of mechanical magicians to go out and work their own magic. And so this guy in Myanmar who I met actually uses his rural vehicle to deliver water to houses who don't actually have indoor plumbing during the dry season. So what I'm hoping to do is somehow collect all these different resources and photographs and stories into one central place so that I can actually make somewhere where both we can read about how people use technology in different places to solve their everyday problems, and also how vehicle drivers all over the wide world can use this site to be inspired for their own design challenges and make things work for them. So that's my story. Thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and this is a story about a wardrobe. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so let me back up a bit and ask you a quick question. How many of you believed in Santa Claus when you were kids? I certainly did. And I believed in Santa long after I had given up on fairies and witches and thinking that if I tried really hard then I could fly. And the reason for this is that year after year, when I woke up on Christmas morning, I would find myself surrounded, and I mean surrounded, by toys. There were model trains and Lego sets and books and games and puzzles and one of those giant Super Soakers. You name that 90s toy, I got it for Christmas. But it wasn't because I got a lot of presents that I believed in Santa. It was mostly because even at the age of 5 or 6, I had a pretty shrewd idea of how rich my parents were. which is to say, not at all. I knew they couldn't possibly afford my Christmas bounty, so it had to be Santa. In fact, I told my mother this. Mommy, there must be a Santa Claus because you're too poor to buy any of the presents. My mom made this really funny face when I said this, and I was like, oh, maybe it's because, without meaning to, I kind of sounded really rude. But what I didn't realize at the time was that this was my first great insight in what it means to be Santa Claus. Because yes, my parents weren't rich. They didn't actually have some secret stash of money somewhere that they could buy my Christmas presents with. They were two poor Sri Lankan immigrants who just moved to Australia and were trying to make their way in Sydney, which is not exactly a very affordable city. But they were on this mission to be the best parents that they could possibly be, and they made millions of daily sacrifices to do this. But I only have 5 minutes, I'm only going to talk about this one thing. So this is where the wardrobe comes in. So at the beginning of the year, they would go to the shops and they would pick out these toys and they would put it on lay-by, which is this system where you can ask the shop to put it aside and you pay for it in installments. And then when they finished paying off for these presents, and by the way, other people were buying washing machines and fridges, but my parents, they were buying big Lego sets. When they paid for it, they'd bring it home and they'd put it behind this wardrobe in their bedroom. There was a space between the wardrobe and the wall, and you kind of chuck things over. And then by the time Christmas came around, they'd move this wardrobe aside, and even they'd be surprised at the number of things that they'd managed to collect over the year. And I don't know when it was exactly that I figured out this Santa Santa relationship, but part of it had to do with the kinds of people my parents are. Because you can smuggle the toys in from the car and hide them in inventive places. You can shoo the kids to bed at 8 p.m. and then wait until 3 a.m. so that you can tiptoe in with the toys. You can wear your best surprised face on Christmas morning, but you can't hide your character 364 days of the year. And what I've realized as I was growing up is that my parents play Santa to dozens of people in my community every day. They're always finding a thoughtful gift or getting on the phone and hanging out for hours with someone who's having a bad day or lending money to someone who's in a tight spot. And usually it's only my parents who know that this person is even in a jam to begin with. And I think part of the reason they are this way is because they grew up during a really hard time in Sri Lanka. In the 70s, the Sri Lankan government was doing this socialist experiment in self-sufficiency, which meant no imports, really long queues for necessities like bread and rationing, and everyone wearing the same shirt because that was the only fabric you had in stores. So they went through a really hard time. But people at the time found it in themselves to kind of reach into themselves, invoke a magic wardrobe of sorts, and come up with more than they had. And so that's what I think my parents do every day of their lives. And it's really funny, I think there's a poetic irony in the fact that an experiment in closed-off self-sufficiency is what gave my parents the sense of abundant giving without fear. And I think my parents follow 3 rules in their invoking of this magic wardrobe in everything that they do. The first is that, kind of like kids, looking under stones and behind bushes for, fairy folk, my parents are always on the lookout, keeping an ear open for someone who might be making a call for help without actually really saying it. And that's why my parents are always the first to know when someone who seems to really have it together is actually really falling apart. The second thing is that they believe in a sense of being able to help people that actually exceeds their material needs. My mom will always have this list of a long list of people that she needs to buy New Year's gifts for, but she only has this much money. But somehow, her commitment to bringing joy will mean that she manages to find something for everyone. Even that last person on the list, even if it means borrowing through her own things to find something perfect for that person, she'll manage. The last thing is that their sense of gratitude absolutely reframes their reality. I love hearing their stories about their childhood in the 70s. Because even though it's a miserable time, they talk not only about the times my dad had to wait for hours in the queue for bread, but also the time his mom used her meager ration of sugar to make something delicious for unexpected guests. And then beg them to stay for tea as well. It's really incredible how that sense of gratitude makes, when they talk about the 70s, it makes it more magical and exciting than it really was. And so my question to everyone today is, how might we also invoke a magic wardrobe in our lives? How might we always have an ear and an eye open out for problems that no one seems to see? How might we use our sense of gratitude to reframe our reality, to be more than the little bit that we can see? And how can we use that to unlock a sense of generosity that absolutely exceeds our material means, but works anyway, making us be the magical superhuman beings that we really are? Thank you.
Round of applause for our man, Kip Pang.
Do you remember the last time you had a good conversation? I'm talking about a damn good conversation. Maybe you were with your friend till 2 a.m. in the morning, just chatting about random theories on life, sharing stories or talking about relationships. You were able to talk about ABC and 1, 2, 3. Heck, it doesn't matter. Everything just clicked and time just flew by, right? You were able to be yourself, share your emotions, be who you are, and just maybe be silent. Everything was fine. I used to have a damn hard time being able to connect with people, looking people right in the eyes. I was shy, I have an accent, and if you were to ask me to speak in public, I'll be going to that door right now. I was scared because I was scared of taking the risk to be myself. I grew up in an Asian family where we don't say I love you out loud, where we don't give hugs openly. I was scared. Scared to show my emotions in front of others. When people would ask me, what do you think on this? I would say, I don't know. What do you think, Keith? I was scared. And I was scared because I was scared of speaking up for myself. Have you ever held yourself back because you were too self-conscious? You guys heard of this before. If you were not afraid to do anything, who could you be and what could you do? If you were not afraid to do anything, who could you be and what could you do? Ask yourself this at the end of today. What have you failed at today? I'm talking about the magic of taking risks and putting yourself out there by being yourself. I think that's one of the hardest things to do and feel accepted at the same time. How can you open up your arms and feel accepted? Certain emotions. If I never took a risk, I would not be able to share this for you today. I never thought that this stiff Asian guy, right, can do the Running Man. Imagine that, right? It's a very hard thing to do, to be outside your comfort circle. Why are you here today? Are you here maybe you want to connect with people? Do you want to hear all these amazing speakers? Have you said hi to someone you don't know today? Have you gotten a picture at the danger booth of someone you don't know today? Have you tweeted about Creative Mornings and tell the world that you're here? Are you proud that you're here today? Are you proud of what you're doing today? I want to share with you one of my failures. This came to my mind when I was thinking about this talk, and it's kind of embarrassing. Do you remember back in high school, if a guy wants to ask a girl out, the guy would literally say to the girl, would you like to go out with me? Yeah, I was a shy Asian kid. And I think it took me like a year, because I had this crush on a girl, to finally work up the courage to want to ask her out. So imagine the cafeteria. You know, we got the pizza and the milk chocolate and those biscuits. You guys know what I'm talking about. So I was sitting right on the other side, and she was sitting at that table. She was by herself at this time. So I'm like, yes, I got this. I'm gonna go get some chocolate, and maybe I'll stop by her table. So I got up and I'm walking towards her table. And when I'm walking, I saw that two of her friends went to go sit next to her. And I'm like, damn, what can I say now? I thought she was going to be alone. I'm still walking, because you know when you're in emotion, you just keep on doing things, and things come into your mind. So I'm walking up to her, and I'm walking right next to her. I looked at her, but I kept on going. And I went to her friend. I went to her friend, and I said, do you want to go up with me? And here's the thing, she said no, but in my mind, I was like, I don't care. But here's the thing, that taught me that failure wasn't all that bad. I was like, I don't care. And from then on, that story, it just taught me to say, to what? Take risk and be yourself, because we all have a story, we all have our ups and downs, we all have experiences and wisdom that no one else can have. If you do not share what you have, how will others know about it? Thank you.
I've been blown away by these so far. We gotta do this more often. We have one left though, right here in the front. Everyone, hands together for Rosa.
Hi everyone. Thank you.
Let's see if this works. There we go.
It
All
works.
right.
Cool. Hi, I'm Rosa. Thank you so much for coming out today. So I'm the last speaker. It's a little bit, scary, but that's going to be fun. So I want to introduce a little bit about myself before we begin. I'm from South Korea, and I grew up in Cairo, Egypt, living all around, traveling all around the world with my family. Ever since I was young, I knew I wanted to study art and design, and so I found myself in Boston studying graphic design at Massachusetts College of Art and Design. Some of my friends are here today. I graduated with one of the best classes ever in 2015. And right before I graduated, I got hired to work for Society of Grown-Ups in Brookline as a user interface designer, and that's where I currently am. So I wanted to share a little bit about the past 2 to 3 months of my life that really got me believing in magic and the power of magic, and I wanted to share that with you. I see, I love the diversity of the speakers, by the way, today, and I think that's awesome. I don't know if some people might know this or not, but if you're not a citizen of the U.S. or if you don't hold a green card, it is extremely difficult to work in the U.S. Extremely difficult. So a year after I started working at Society of Grown-Ups, I had applied for a work visa called the H-1B. It allows you to work in the U.S. for 3 years under sponsorship of a company. And then in May, I got a phone call from my lawyer, and I was a little devastated because he said, "Sorry, Rosa, you did not get the visa." So I was a little torn, and I knew I had 2 options. One was to go home, to pack my bags and go back to Korea. And the other one was a little bit of a hard thing. It was to apply for a visa called O1. It's good for artists and designers, for engineers that may not be within STEM. And so I was like, you know what? One thing I know is I don't want to go home. Not that I don't want to be with my family or my friends back there, but I knew that was not my life. I'm a traveler, so I had so much more designing to do all around the world. I had so many more people to meet, so many more places to go, and so much designing I wanted to do with all these people that I've met all throughout my life. And I knew that when something is amazing and also both terrifying, that's when you know that you have to pursue it. So I went for it. And special thanks to all my friends. They secretly donated money for me. They raised money for me, which was amazing. I was able to put together a 350-page petition with my lawyer and was able to apply for this visa. But I'm not going to talk about how I put this petition together and how this all came together. But I want to talk about the 2 months of me waiting to hear back from the government if it was going to be a yes or a no. And it was 2 months of me not being allowed to work for anyone, and the 2 months of not being able to travel outside of the US. So the unknown, that was a little bit terrifying. As I said, you know, I was scared that if I hear a no from the government, I had literally 2 weeks to a month to pack my bags and leave. So it was a little bit scary. But then I started realizing that not knowing what will happen to you is your greatest life motivator. I started to understand and learn to enjoy, to endure, and to survive every moment of your life that happens within you as it comes to you. And then the adventures began. I went on some crazy hiking trips, some crazy camping trips. I happened to be dog sitting for my high school friend, and she was amazing. A lot of my friends met her. She was a Bernese Mountain Dog. So I did a lot of traveling with her. But this isn't the adventure that I'm talking about. And I think a lot of speakers here talked a little bit about this. But I found the kid inside of me. I started having fun. I started paying attention to everyone around me, the people that I was meeting, the places that I was going to, the music that I was listening to, the body movement. This is getting a little bit philosophical. I saw the dust on the floor and was like, wow, that's my dust. That's from me. And it was getting really exciting. So this is the adventure that I was going through. I felt like I was being a little kid again. And I think this is what makes you a very, very strong designer, a communication designer, a creative thinker. You're not just designing when you're in front of a screen and on an Adobe program and making shit. That's cool too. But you're continuously designing when you're traveling, when you're meeting new people, when you're challenging yourself to have difficult conversations, to talk about why Trump sucks and why Hillary. I'm not going to go into political detail. But I think this is what makes you a beautiful designer and a more powerful designer who knows how to talk to others, who knows how to understand culture, and who knows how to talk to others and understand where their background is coming from. And all of this made me realize and learn that I needed to live in the now. I was living in the now. I didn't have much time, but I wasn't worrying about that. I was focused on myself, I was present, and I was just living. And I think that was an amazing experience for me. And so the magic that I'm talking about is when you learn how to embrace the unknown, and when you're adventuring out of your own comfort zone, when you're paying attention to yourself and to others around you and connecting with them, and when you're living in the now, that's when you start realizing and finding the magic in yourself. And then you start seeing the magic in others, and then the magic in the world, and then the magic in the universe. And when all of this force comes together, then you start to experience something that is extraordinary and something that you never thought you would experience before, and something that is extremely hard to put in words as well. And so what happened? Thankfully, I was able to obtain the O1 visa for 3 years, and with indefinite amount of extensions after that. And that's amazing. And I really want to thank everyone who has helped me that as well. But I want to say that I've gained so much more, something so much bigger than the visa itself during the past 2 or 3 months. And I think I want you to take that, what I want you to take out of this is find the magic in yourself and stay connected to the things around you and believe in magic. And I want to end with one of my favorite quotes by Charles DeWitt. I do believe in an everyday sort of magic, the inexplicable connectedness we sometimes experience with places, people, works of art. The eerie appropriateness of moments of synchronicity, the whispered voice, the hidden presence when we think we're alone. Thank you.